Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. 15th day of August, halfway through the month now, 2021. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, hosting today's show. Up first, we've got hazardous weather graphics that aren't showing any hazardous weather, so no watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere in the state for the next couple of days. Public watches, warnings, or advisories. There are some gale warnings in the marine forecast. We'll see later on. Otherwise, pretty good everywhere else. Bering Sea, really no big storms coming into that area. But on the satellite imagery, you can see one system moving through the southeast coast, drifting eastward there into western Canada, and showers and rain on the decrease here this afternoon across the Panhandle. Still some fairly moderate amounts falling in a few locations. Wrangell, for example, a little over half an inch in the last 12 hours, ending at 3 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Otherwise, amounts are lighter, about 0.2 of an inch, say, at Sitka. Juneau only had 0.06 of an inch during the same time period. And sunshine breaking out on the North Gulf Coast. Cordova up to near 70 degrees this afternoon, as was Seward, thanks to northerly winds gusting up to about 30 miles an hour with sunshine, so close to 70 in those locations along the North Gulf Coast. Upper 60s, Kenai Peninsula, Kenai Lake area, as well as East Anchorage, and about 67 or 8 at Big Lake in the southern Sitna Valley there. Otherwise, rain and clouds kept it cooler up over the central interior. Fair amounts of precipitation falling in the west central interior areas along the mid-Yukon River Valley locations there, either side. And then a band of moisture coming eastward along the Arctic coast for some pretty light rainfall amounts there. And also light rain extended as far south as Platinum and Cape Newfoundland, only 1/100th of an inch there. Bethel picked up about 6/100ths of an inch in the 12-hour period, again ending this afternoon. And little, if any, over the Alaska Peninsula, although Port Heiden did pick up 1 or 2/100ths of an inch earlier today. And then some moisture sneaking up into the central Aleutian, associated with a system that's just to your south there, for some clouds and areas of light rain and fog in those areas. You can see on the today's imagery, or today's surface chart, some areas of light rain over the Aleutians with that system farther to the south. By far the heavier rainfall amounts in the central interior with that nearly rather stationary front that's pushing eastward along the across the Arctic coast, but hanging up there over Norton Sound and into the central interior. So areas like Manly Hot Springs, for example, picked about 0.8 of an inch of precipitation in the last 12 hours, while Poor Man and Indian Mountain had about 2/3 of an inch during the same time frame. So some pretty good soaking rains, beyond soaking rains there in the interior. Fairbanks and then lighter amounts there, about 0.2 of an inch, and then can you see it scatters out to showers and then ends over toward Eagle down into Northway and Tok with sunshine in those areas. Copper River Basin had some partly mostly sunny skies today. Temperatures rising to near 70 in some locations there, otherwise mid to upper 60s along with Copper River. Then you can see the clear skies, Kenai Peninsula. See an increase in mid and high level clouds this afternoon with that system up to the north and the westerly flow. Ridging, another sunny day, Kodiak Island. You can also see kind of the, no, it's dark as the clear skies would look due to the smoke that's blown in from the Russian Far East into the across Alaska with that wind flow. So even when it's clear, it looked kind of hazy due to the higher level smoke. Otherwise, high pressure, not bad over the Alaska Peninsula. Clouds kind of banked up on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula there, but dry up to the Pribilofs. And again, the weak troughs, main low center east of the Panhandle, and then the upper level system kicking through, showers ending. You see quite a bit of clearing there off the coast. Now I'll kind of move in tonight. Still a couple of weak troughs there, very weak, and really not really causing much of a factor. Just some isolated lingering showers but all decreasing there, with also maybe some breaks showing up over the panhandle. Stays dry over southern Alaska, with all the moisture staying over the northern Kuskokwim Valley up into the interior, central interior areas. Moderate amounts of rain, possibly briefly heavy at times. More of a continuous rain over a rather extended period going on up there, and then lighter amounts, couple of troughs, rain and snow. Increases with a trough approaching the western Arctic coast later tonight, and periods of rain, fog, but light winds St. Lawrence Island, and winds kind of gusty on the western Arctic coast, Cape Lisburne area there. Maybe small craft advisory level winds, but winds diminishing Kodiak Island and North Gulf coastal areas, and the channel areas that saw the breezy conditions this afternoon. Those will be dropping off tonight, if not ending altogether, becoming light and variable. Next system over the just south of the Aleutians continues to increase the rain and push it north and northeastward into the Fox Islands tonight. Could be moderate to briefly heavy there in advance of the Triple Point front. Some of that pushes in toward Falls Pass, but not quite reaching Cold Bay or King Cove, and then scattering out the showers around Amchitka, drying out with high pressure ridging into the far western Aleutians and across the south central Bering Sea. So the Pribilofs stay dry and with light winds, but low clouds and fog. And for Monday, rain continues over the interior with showers either to the west or east, drying out with high pressure over the northern Bering Sea. And again, series of troughs swinging around that Arctic low there keep a chance of moisture on the western Arctic coast, and into the Brooks Range. Anything above 2,000 feet will fall in the form of snow in the Brooks Range up there. Otherwise, southern Alaska, variably cloudy, risk of some afternoon showers. Into the northern panhandle, basically a dry day tomorrow with just a risk of an isolated shower or two, but really partly to mostly sunny, probably to sum it up optimistically. And then rainfall chances increase there for Kodiak Island with that warm front and system coming up with periods of rain for the Alaska Peninsula. Eastern Aleutians, low clouds, rain, fog, and drizzle. IFR flying conditions becoming showery toward Adak and Atka. But the northern Bering Sea, light winds, western Aleutians, light winds, maybe some clearing, possible clearing for the Pribilofs with light winds and dry conditions. That'll last into Tuesday. Next system back to the northwest, over the northwest Bering Sea, holding back, not really affecting anywhere in Alaska at this point. High pressure, St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait, light winds, low clouds, fog, but also some clearing for the southwest coast. Next system pushing northeastward across Kodiak, and then showers ending in the afternoon for Kodiak or diminishing, and then rain, moderate to heavy at times, eastern North Gulf Coast into the north coast of the Panhandle, with lighter amounts down to the south. In fact, places like Annette or Stewart, Hyder may escape precipitation, but just see an increase in the clouds. Stays wet over the central and eastern interior, cool and cloudy and showery in those areas, but rainfall amounts probably lighter, and still a chance of rain or snow showers up along the western Arctic coast into the north slope. But southern Bering Sea, Aleutians, light winds, variably cloudy, maybe some sunshine, probably some low clouds and fog in the area there, but winds quite light up to the Pribilofs is included, just light variable winds. Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, winds all looking light, even into the western interior. Strongest winds will be with a tighter gradient there as gale warnings ahead of that system show up along the Panhandle and the eastern North Gulf Coast. North coast of the Panhandle looking at gale warnings, small craft advisories on the south coast. And for the lows for tonight, see upper 40s, lower 50s for the Panhandle, and lower 40s, or in the 40s basically for southern Alaska, Bristol Bay, upper 40s to near 50 maybe. Highs tomorrow for these locations, upper 60s near 70 southern Panhandle, and in the 60s, lower to mid Copper River Basin, Sitna Valley, Anchorage area, Kenai Peninsula, upper 50s near 60 Bristol Bay, Kodiak near 60. Same thing, mid to upper 50s Kuskokwim Valley. And for the following day, Tuesday morning, lows 40s and 50s. Moving on to the highs for Tuesday afternoon, lower 60s Bristol Bay, upper 50s to near 60 Copper River Basin, south central Alaska, mid to upper 50s Kuskokwim Valley, mid 60s, warmest spot there, southern southeast coast, a little under 60 to the north. And up north, lower to mid 30s tonight for the Arctic coast, north slope into the Brooks Range, otherwise upper 40s to near 50. And for the highs on Monday afternoon over the northern interior, we've got, again, pushing up near 70 there, North Waytoke possibly, 60s Copper River Basin, and in the 40s from the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast, otherwise lower to mid 50s over the interior, mid 40s there for the Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island, and the western Seward Peninsula. Lows in the 30s for the areas, actually, Seward Peninsula, Kobuk Valley, northern Koyukuk Valley, all the way to the Arctic coast, lows in the mid to upper 30s and 40s elsewhere, followed by highs near 40 on the central Arctic coast, otherwise 50s, maybe lower 60s toward the eastern interior, mid 40s out over the northern Bering Sea. Southwest areas 40 to 50 tonight, highs in the 50s, mid to upper to near 60 Bristol Bay, followed by lows in the 40s once again on Tuesday morning. Tuesday afternoon highs 55 to 63.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather, first graphic here for Monday morning. We've got IFR, central western Arctic coast, some VFR over the central north slope, then marginal VFR, Kobuk Valley out to the northwest coast, Kotzebue Sound, IFR much of the Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound, and into the lower Yukon River Valley, Yukon Delta, Nunivak Island there, and most of the Bering Sea, some areas of marginal VFR out there though, but Aleutians basically IFR, Bristol Bay marginal VFR eastward into the interior to the Alaska Range and into the central Tanana Valley there over to the White Mountains, and then mostly VFR for the Yukon Flats. VFR, Copper River Basin, south central Alaska, some marginal VFR, southern Prince William Sound, and right along the eastern North Gulf Coast into Yakutat and the north coast of the Panhandle, otherwise VFR, Kodiak Island, VFR. And then for the afternoon forecast, looking at some IFR for the eastern North Gulf Coast, mostly off the coast there, otherwise marginal Prince William Sound eastward, Yakutat, Icy Bay into, or Dry Bay into Elfin Cove in the north and central coast of the Panhandle, staying VFR eastern inside waters on down toward Dixon Entrance. Lots of IFR for the Alaska Peninsula, Aleutians, Bering Sea, and a band of that extending into the Yukon Delta. Marginal VFR, St. Lawrence Island, Seward Peninsula, northwest coast, Noatak Valley, and the IFR holds central western Arctic coast. And for the morning on Tuesday, areas of IFR with some scattered areas of marginal VFR and isolated areas of, isolated VFR with some areas of marginal VFR, Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast. A little more in the way of VFR there along and north of the Yukon River to the Brooks Range, and then mostly marginal VFR in the from the southwest coast there, Yukon Delta, northeastward in that southwest flow, carrying the moisture in. So White Mountains, IFR, Alaska Range, IFR, Western Alaska Range, some IFR as well, and the North Gulf Coast, and Northern Panhandle and the central coastal areas, IFR, marginal to the south, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, all of the Aleutians, most of the Bering Sea, including the Pribilofs, will be IFR, marginal VFR for the eastern Bering Sea, but St. Lawrence Island, Norton Sound, Nome, White Mountain, Golovin, all VFR. For the afternoon, that holds up there, except St. Lawrence Island becomes marginal, and more in the way of VFR for the interior of the state, but quite an area of marginal VFR over the Copper River Basin, the Alaska Range, and still the White Mountains there, but generally improving. And from the Brooks Range to the Arctic coast, marginal VFR, IFR, western Bering Sea, and areas west of Nikolsky all the way out to Shimianat-2. Fognak Island, VFR around Cook Inlet, Bristol Bay, VFR. Kodiak Island, marginal. Eastern Gulf of Alaska up to Yakutat and the northern Panhandle, IFR. Anatuvik and Anigan both look for occasional marginal VFR throughout the day tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill, lowest conditions on the western approach, both passes, possibly IFR. And for Rainy, marginal VFR, but out the east entrance should stay VFR. Windy VFR, but northern entrance there, north of the pass, marginal VFR. Same pattern for Isabel, VFR, but out the north entrance, possible marginal VFR. Mentasta, though, either approach, either entrance, VFR through the pass, VFR. Tanita, VFR. Portage, looking good through tomorrow, VFR. And Chilcoot White, VFR. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet there over the southern Chukchi Sea and the northwest coast. Otherwise, sloping up to 8,000 feet, southern Norton Sound, to 10,000 feet over the eastern Aleutians, and about 8,000 across the Panhandle. Icing, moisture up along the Yukon River, could be some areas of considerable rime icing there, and some more approaching Kodiak Island and into the southern Bering Sea. Jet stream, Northwest flow, 50 to 80 knots into the northern Bering Sea, turn southwest or west-southwest, 55 to as high as 80 knots across the interior, 85 knots there for the Alaska Peninsula. And at 9,000 feet, southwest flow of 20 knots, 20 to 40 knots into the interior, even stronger eastern Beaufort Sea coast of the polar low there. And 3,000 feet, 25 to 35 knot winds, north slope Arctic coast, and into the central interior and southeast 35 Alaska Peninsula. Translating into occasional moderate chop, especially for small aircraft, central and part of the eastern Arctic coast, as well as just east of the Yukon River there in northern Kuskokwim Valley, and light to isolated moderate chop, Alaska Peninsula, Adak and Atka, otherwise smooth just about everywhere else. After the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining us today is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Thank you for joining us, Eric.
My pleasure, Dave.
Thank you. And you're joining us here to talk a little bit more about satellites and how satellites work, and especially one neat feature that's working over Alaska right now. What is that?
Well, there's a lot of weather satellites and a lot of instruments on these satellites, and there are new generations going up and new instruments. This includes something called the Day-Night Band, which is not a cover band at the local bar, but it's a new satellite that is very useful, especially here in Alaska, especially in the winter.
In the wintertime, yeah, that makes it a little bit hard to use some of the normal tools that we associate with weather satellite imagery.
Right. You know, one of the classic weather satellite instruments is just visible light. What would the human eye see if you were riding on a weather satellite yourself and looked down and it was black and white? You'd see the clouds reflecting the sunlight. And we've got an example from the Pacific Ocean. There's a geostationary satellite, and we can see that the eastern side of the image is in daylight. The western side, it's night over there, so you don't see anything because there's no sunlight over there. And visible imagery, it's very intuitive. You see the clouds just like you see them standing on the ground, but now you're a satellite seeing them from above. But the problem is, what about the night side of the planet? How do you track the storms? How do you know where the rain is, the snow, the weather, if you can't see the clouds? And that's why, just like a television can change from one channel to another, or radio can change stations, satellites can change the frequency of the electromagnetic spectrum that they're looking at. We can go to infrared instead of visible light. You know, it's heat energy. You can see heat, and we've got another satellite picture from the same time, same satellite, out over the Pacific Ocean. That's the infrared side. And we're seeing temperature there. And even at night, when there's no light, everything still has a temperature.
So we're sensing something with a thermometer instead of perhaps the visible side of that, is what you're saying?
That's right. On this depiction, colder features are lighter shades, warmer features are dark. And so clouds tend to be colder than the ground. Clouds are higher in the atmosphere, it's cooler. And so that very same image on the western or the left-hand side of the globe, now we can see the clouds there, even though it's nighttime, because we're seeing the temperatures. And one nice feature is that tropical storm there, just in the middle of the northern hemisphere there, hurricane or typhoon, depending on...
That's that swirly part that we see in the middle of the image?
There you go. You can even see the eye on it there, especially in the infrared image. So we've got two kinds of imagery there from the same satellite, different instruments, you know, different channels like on a television, visible and infrared. You know, it turns out there's no one magic tool. Each has its strengths, each has its flaws, weaknesses. The visible is nice, it's intuitive, it's easy to understand, but doesn't work at night. Infrared is nice, it works at night, you can see temperatures, but there is a catch. What if your clouds and the nearby bare ground or open water, what if those were about the same temperature?
Oh, that's going to be hard to figure out what's going on.
If you can only see temperature and you have two features that are the same temperature, they will look the same. You won't be able to tell. They're camouflaged. This happens, especially, it can happen around Alaska, especially over the ocean when you have low clouds that are the same temperature as the open water.
That happens quite a bit in Alaska.
We have an example. Now, this is from a different geostationary satellite. It's down over the Atlantic Ocean. Look in the South Atlantic. In infrared, we've highlighted in a yellow circle there. There's some patches of clouds, but it looks like there's a clear area in the middle of that image. That's the infrared look. But let's take a look at the visible channel, and we can see there's a stripe of clouds across the middle of that circle that is only visible in the visible. The trick here is that those are low clouds of about the same temperature as the surrounding ocean. So from an infrared point of view, where you're seeing temperature, the clouds in the water nearby are the same temperature, they look the same. It's only on the visible that you can see what stands out as the actual imagery.
Okay.
Two tools, each have their strengths and weaknesses. Can we combine them? That's where the day-night band comes in.
Oh, okay.
It's a super sensitive visible sensor that can actually see by moonlight. It can even see the aurora.
Wow.
And in Alaska, we have long winter nights. We can use that day-night band. Here's an example from that storm that blew the Kullik drilling platform ashore near Kodiak Island in December back in 2012. This image is right near when that storm happened, and it's in the middle of the night in December.
But this looks like visible imagery.
Looks like daytime imagery. It's amazing. That sensor can take any little bit of moonlight and just make the most of it. And we can see so much detail. Even in the northern part of the image there, you can see some aurora up there. The northern lights
That's that band that goes across the Arctic slope?
You got it. That's the northern lights. We're seeing black and white image here, so you don't get the green or the purple colors there. But that is the aurora. There's another example of the day-night band, and this is from January of 2013. It's about 4 in the morning, and this is a snapshot from Weather Service software. And we can even see in the middle of the image, there's the lights of Fairbanks and North Pole over to Eielson Air Force Base. Anchorage and Matsu lights, city lights, are evident as well.
Sure
We can see, even though it's 4 in the morning in January, there is no sunlight to be had, that just enough moonlight is available that this sensor can see that. So we're trying to solve that puzzle where visible light is good, but only during the daytime. IR is good at night, but you can't see the difference between clouds and ground sometime. The day-night band is an attempt to do the best of both with one tool. And it's brand new for Alaska here, and we're hoping to use it in the forecast process and help predict storms, weather patterns, to help get good forecasts for people.
Okay, another tool in the weather toolkit for meteorologists in Alaska and researchers worldwide. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today. And you can learn more about GINA and the day-night band by going to the web address that you see on your screen. For Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at marine forecasts for the south coast of the Panhandle. We've got northwesterlies in the forecast for Monday at 15 knots, seas at about 6 feet. Lighter and more variable on the north coast there, anywhere from west to south at just 10 knots, 5 to 6 foot seas. Clarence Strait, west winds at 10 knots. Stevens Passage, south winds at 10 knots. And southeast 15 for Lynn Canal, seas 3 feet. Big increase in those winds for Lynn Canal and other areas there, most areas. Small craft advisory, sustained southerlies, 30 knots, 6 foot seas, and 20 knots out of the south for Stevens Passage with higher gusts, and northwest 15 for Clarence Strait with 3 foot seas. Otherwise, along the coast Prince of Wales Island, westerlies 30 knots, and then gale warnings for the central coast for south to southwest winds sustained at 35 knots, southeast 35 knots for the north coast. Prince William Sound tomorrow, east winds at 15 knots, south 15 for the Middleton Island area, but small craft advisories for the western North Gulf Coast, where winds will be out of the west at 25 knots. 20-knot winds in the forecast for the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay. South winds for Cook Inlet, northern Cook Inlet, south at 20, south of the Forelands, 25 knots from the south with 6 foot seas. Those drop off and become westerly on Tuesday to 15 knots, southern Cook Inlet, light and variable northern Cook Inlet, Kamishak Bay, west at 15. Small craft advisories, Barren Islands, northerly winds 30 knots. Northeast 25 for the western North Gulf Coast and the eastern North Gulf Coast, southeast at 30 knots, northeast 20 for Prince William Sound, seas at about 4 feet. Kodiak Island, southwesterlies 20 knots, seas 5 to 6 feet. And then from Sitkinak to Cape Sarachev, look for south to southeast winds at 30 knots with 8 to 9 foot seas. Bering Sea side of the peninsula, southeast 25, seas 5 feet, but light winds for Bristol Bay out of the southeast 10 knots, seas at about 3 feet. Those stay light on Tuesday. North at 10 there for Bristol Bay. Light variable winds for the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula for Tuesday with seas at about 3 feet. And from Cape Sarachev to Castle Cape, southwest 20. Castle Cape to Sitkinak, west 25. Small craft advisories also on the east side of Kodiak Island for west winds at 25 knots, seas at about 8 feet. Fox Islands, Unalaska Island, south to southeast, 25 to 30 knot winds tomorrow, otherwise 25 knots from the south or east there. Easterlies on the north side of Unmak Island. AKwx, northeast 25, and north 30 for Amchitka Island, northwest 20 for the area from Kiska to Shemya. And for Tuesday, from Shemya all the way over toward Adak, west winds 15 knots, 5-foot seas, AKwx specifically. Northerlies at 15 to 20 knots, and for the Fox Islands, mostly north or north-northwesterlies at 15 knots. For the day Tuesday, seas running 5 to 10 feet. Kuskokwim Delta Coast tomorrow, south winds 20 knots. Yukon Delta Coast, small craft advisory, southwest 25 knots, and southwest 20 knots for St. Matthew Island. East of 15 for the Pribilof, seas at about 5 feet. And then the Yukon Delta Coast, the St. Lawrence Island zone and Norton Sound, both northeast at 20. And for Tuesday, Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, north 15, 3 to 5 foot seas. Along the Yukon Delta Coast, winds will be northeast at 15. And for Tuesday, Kuskokwim Delta Coast, light northwest breeze at 10 knots, and light variable winds for the Pribilofs at 10 knots with 5 foot seas. St. Matthew Island, east at 20. And for the Central Arctic coast tomorrow, pretty brisk out of the west, 30 knots with seas at 7 feet. Small craft advisories for the western Arctic coast as well as the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. On the west side, winds will be west at 25 knots. East side there, southwest at 25. Northwest 20 down to Cape Thompson. Then northwest 15, south of Cape Thompson to Wales. And for Tuesday, northwest winds 15 knots from Wales up to Cape Beaufort and probably up to Point Lay, turning west at 20 for the central coast. And then dropping back to about 15 knots for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, still from the west, seas at about 3 to 4 feet. For tonight, front kind of stalling out through the central interior, so expect moderate amounts of rain to continue from St. Lawrence Island eastward into the White Mountains north of Fairbanks and on up into the upper Yukon Valley and along the Porcupine River. Chance of rain or snow, light rain or snow there for the western Arctic coast, and dry with high pressure, Bristol Bay into south central Alaska, but considerable mid and high level clouds moving by. Same thing for the Copper River Basin. Less shower activity for the Panhandle. Rain with that next system pushing into the eastern Aleutians, pushes the Alaska Peninsula tomorrow afternoon, Kodiak Island tomorrow evening and overnight, and then up to the North Gulf Coast and northern Panhandle on Tuesday with drier conditions back to the west and northwest.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.